Hello again. Now, the High Court in Bloemfontein has dismissed charges against all the accused in the 24.9 million rand Nulane Investment fraud trial. This is the first trial related to allegations presented during the State Capture Commission. Acting Judge Nonkululeko has slammed the state for failing to prove its case. So what does this mean for future cases and trials related to state capture? To speak to us about, I'm joined now by crime expert and strategic analyst Andy Mashaile, Tyrone Maseko from T. Maseko Attorneys, and Nonkululeko Mntambo from Defend Our Democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to today, and thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Tyrone, perhaps if I can start with you from a legal perspective. The fact that these charges were withdrawn and the acting judge slammed the state for failing to prove his case cannot be seen in a positive light at all. In case this is problematic.
Good afternoon, Brad. Yeah, I would say it's actually worse than problematic. The NPA has got a serious problem here, because these are serious failings. The NPA has a duty which is slightly different to that of the police. The police investigate matters, but the NPA has to make sure that the docket is ready for court. So
Tyrone, hold on. Tyrone, we can't see you. Can you just enable your camera again? For some reason, your camera has gone off. We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Apologies.
Can we see Tyrone?
Is that better?
Is that better? Fine. Now we're going to see you, Tyrone. Proceed.
My apologies. I was making the point that the NPA, remember, Praden, that when the NPA receives a docket, they have to evaluate the evidence in that docket and make a decision. And the NPA does not have to prosecute every single docket that they receive. Control prosecutor, in this case would have been the director of prosecution in the Free State, has to apply his mind. And what is he applying his mind to? He's basically asking himself the question, is there, enough evidence in this docket for me to present to court and for there to be a successful prosecution? So that's a decision that the NPA has to make itself, even before we can ask the court, a judge, to make a decision. So what we have here is a discharge in terms of Section 174. But a discharge in terms of Section 174 means that the defense did not even have to present their defense. So that is very, very serious, because it simply means that someone didn't do their job properly. How is it that this case was even brought before court if it was going to be subject to Section 174 dismissal? Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Nonkululeko, you must be worried as Defend Our Democracy. I mean, you are actively campaigning for clean governance and you are actively campaigning against state capture. When this first trial of its nature arising out of the State Capture Commission fails dismally just at get-go?
No, we're definitely worried, because all of this speaks to a pattern of events which has happened and will happen. So as we've seen in the case, we are looking at a case within a case. So we ask ourselves, okay, when this is handled in this way, when evidence is handled in this way, where do we move from here? And I think most worryingly of all is that when something this disastrous has taken place, when even the judge is saying that the way this case was handled was laughable, to say the least, we have to, when there's no accountability mechanisms for that, understanding which personalities, which processes have gone wrong, we do have to then ask ourselves, will justice actually be served at the end of the day? And if this is the treatment that we're getting at such a crucial time, it's cause for much more than concern.
Yeah, Andy, just to bring you in there, I mean, to me, the evidence was there. We all had the evidence, so to speak. Maybe they had to get some more evidence through the State Capture Commission. I mean, should we be worried about the capacity of the NPA to deal with such cases? Because there's dozens pending state capture cases.
We should be extremely worried, Braden. If documents, original documents, were given to an investigator who could not, at the end of the day, give those original documents to be presented, that is, the investigator could not give those documents to be presented to the court as according to 174, it means we have a serious problem. And let me start with consequences management. whoever exchanged the documents and the documents were not found and an excuse was given that we're moving from A to B, those people must be disciplined. And if it's in the police, they know you open a DR, and we must be told as the people of South Africa who got disciplined for ensuring that the documents, one way or the other, ensuring, using the words advisedly, that those documents, original documents, are not available. We should be concerned about the other cases that are coming.
Yeah, Tyrone, as a lawyer, as an attorney, I mean, this would speak to the capacity or lack of capacity as well at the NPA going forward, particularly in relation to such state capture cases. How do you see the NPA addressing them? Because if somebody is not doing their job properly, there has to be consequences, as Andy is saying.
Yeah, Brandon. Look, this is extremely unfortunate. You know, we've known for a while now, excuse me, that the NPA is undercapacitated. They've got issues with experience. A lot of prosecutors have left over the years and others gone into the private sector. So what's that done essentially is watered down the NPA's ability to prosecute these complicated cases. And one must really emphasize that these are very, very complex matters. You know, when you're dealing with fraud, money laundering, they're very, very technical offenses, and the way that you present evidence in court has got to be meticulous. So you need skilled and trained, prosecutors to do this and do this effectively. Whether the NPA can capacitate itself in a short space of time and to enable it to prosecute these cases effectively, I don't know, and I've got serious doubts, purely because this is a high-profile matter. So if the NPA couldn't get prosecutors who could prosecute this matter adequately, how, you know, you start to wonder what happens to all the other matters in the various courts. So I really, really don't have confidence. I mean, and you asked the question, what can they do? You know, what's been touted a lot recently is whether the NPA can co-opt experts from, you know, senior counsel and the like from the bar. Now, I believe that the NPA Act does allow for that, but there are also concerns in that regard. You know, then you have to deal with questions of whether outsiders, you know, they're standing in court and the like. So it's a problem for the NPA, and it's also very costly. You know, counsel at the bar, charge per hour. So can the NPA pay? And if the NPA is able to pay those fees, then why not employ those people on a permanent basis within the NPA, which would make sense. So they have to make this decision, but they seem to be taking way too long to get to the end point, and the cases are accumulating in the meantime. So it's a huge concern for us.
Yeah, we are waiting for more of these cases to come to court. Now, defend our democracy, Nonkululeko, there you've expressed your dismay. I mean, we've seen that in public for the failure by the state to effectively present a solid case in this Nulane investment case, which is involving corruption. From your perspective as civil society, what do you think we can be doing to ensure that after the country spent nearly R1 billion in the State Capture Commission, whoever is supposed to be held accountable actually does get their day in court and face the music of their corrupt actions?
I think we have to start with this case specifically, because in as much as it's convenient and it's the pressure of what must we do comes upon us, we need to understand what went wrong in the first place. And as Maseko has already pointed out, there is an issue of undercapacitation that has been raised on many other platforms and times within the NPA itself. What we need, that needs to be addressed. There has been an issue of carelessness. There has been an issue of basically an undercapacitation, perhaps in terms of not only resources, but in terms of the base of knowledge that that is had within certain spaces that are supposed to be looking into our justice system as a whole. We need our accountability processes to work in order for us to know what is going wrong, so that we can fix it for it to go right. And the fear is that we are going to take all of these measures in a very hurried way in order to hide what has gone wrong already, and then find ourselves at the very same place when the new case comes about, which is not supposed to be very long from now. So let us understand what exactly went wrong. What are the accountability processes? who needs to be held accountable, what needs to be fixed, and then we can carry on in a more progressive fashion.
On whose door are you going to knock to put across what you've just expressed here, Nonkululeko, so that what you are suggesting can actually happen? You can be provided with in a transparent manner with the information about actually what went wrong here.
So to begin with, it has to be the NPA. They were prosecuting this case. They are part of the state infrastructure towards realization of justice. It has to come to the NPA's doorstep first. And at the point where there needs to be greater state intervention in terms of capacity or holding people accountable, that also has to follow from that point on. But at this point in time, I think the first people to be approaching is the NPA itself.
Yeah, Andy, I mean, it cannot be an issue of budget. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. I mean, a few months ago, I spoke to Ronald Lamula, the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, about the NPA. And he said, no, we are providing 100% the budget that Shamila Batoyi and the team are requesting from government, from the department. We give it, I don't know how much it is, but he said we give it nearly 100%. So it's not an issue of lack of money or funding, whatever. It's a lack of capacity. Now, if that's the case, should we worry that in terms of state capture cases, we will never see accountability?
From a strategic analysis point of view, when you look at the witnesses that have been brought to the rising sun by the acting judge, I am worried to share with you, Braden, my fears that should it go on like it's going, we are going to, we meaning those who are in the law enforcement justice cluster systems, those who are supporting all of those systems, we are still going through to see challenges as a result of ensuring that there are convictions and there are prosecutions and convictions. And I want to point my finger at the NPA. If we have been talking about lack of capacity, many of those things, when according to their plan, their strategic plan, will the highly skilled people be brought in onto the system? I've listened to this argument for the past 24 months in terms of capacity of the NPA. I am sure that we would need to be told as the people of this country, on this particular day, we will be having highly skilled people in this number dealing with these cases, so that the people of this country can rest assured that the taxes that gets paid are paid for the right purposes in terms of the execution of the mandate of the NPA and all other related, particularly your investigations directorate. What is the relationship between the investigative directorate and the Hawks, Department of Priority Crimes Investigation, or Directorate of Priority Crimes Investigation? I'm interested in those relationships. We might be seeing this at face value, only to find that there might be turf wars and possibilities of unaccounted for mandates and responsibilities.
Tyrone, I mean, from a legal perspective, the last I saw, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the last I saw report from the NPA after this judgment in Bloemfontein last week from the NPA was that they are weighing their options after this ruling. They are weighing their options. From a legal perspective, what kind of options are there beyond appealing, or are they weighing their options to say we appeal or we don't appeal? For me, if they don't appeal, it's going to be embarrassing.
Yes, President. I mean, and the difficulty is that in their consideration of whether to appeal or not, they're confined in that. You know, the NPA cannot go to an appellate court and say, well, we want to argue the facts in the way that the learned judge assessed the facts. They're restricted by law. They cannot do that. So they can only take these matters on appeal on questions of law. Then you ask the question here, well, where was the misdirection or possible misdirection in the application of the law in this matter? But I mean, if you listen to the judge making, handing down the judgment and how damning it is, and remarks like evidence that was presented was a copy that didn't present originals, that is not something that you can appeal. That's not the basis of an appeal. A shoddily presented case to court is to say that you're going to appeal it.
Okay.
It just boggles the mind, you know. And so I don't think that they've got an avenue to appeal here. Sure, they can buy time and say they want to look into it, but to be totally honest, I just don't see what they're going to appeal, to be honest.
I mean, it's embarrassing just to hear that. You present unprofessional as well. I mean, this is the NPA that we all are having our hopes in to say they will deliver for us in terms especially of the state capture related accusations and charges that will be brought. But seemingly we are in trouble. Shamila Batohi has been fairly quiet recently. I mean, do you think she should be speaking out, Nonkululeko, especially about this case being the first one, and we are all asking questions and wondering and really being shocked by this unprofessional delivery by the NPA in this matter?
Absolutely. I think many of us in civil society are waiting for anything that has to be said when it comes to this case, anything of substance that we can work on in terms of with some level of reassurance that the Zondo Commission was not in vain, as you had already pointed out, that this was a very expensive and tedious exercise. And for the first case to then be met with silence after such a disastrous performance, absolutely, it's quite a difficult one to have to take and swallow. So absolutely, there should be more being said and more being done. At the very least, if there's no answers right now, tell us the process by which we will be receiving those answers and deadlines of when we will receive those answers.
Andy, should heads roll?
Heads should definitely roll. If the NPA appeals and the judge said they could not produce the original documents to avoid falsification and error, where will the new documents or where will those original documents be coming from if they could not be found in the last few months of the trial, inclusive of the investigation process? Like I said, Braden, consequences management, heads must roll, heads must be put on the guillotine. Those who are responsible for the fiasco must actually be outed. We must see justice being done for the people of this country from the corridors of the NPA and or all other investigations or investigative relationships that they had with other organizations. Let's see action. Let's see DRs. Let's read in the newspapers. Let's see on your show those who could not come to the party being disciplined so that we can avoid this. When you hit people in the pocket and when you discipline people, our people will be able to deliver. We are just a reckless and lawless country in terms of holding people accountable. Maybe I used the wrong terms by reckless and lawless. We are too sweet, and we need to deliver a punch to those who must deliver to us.
Yeah, Tyrone, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I mean, you are a practicing attorney. But I would imagine out of this case, looking at it from a legal perspective, your confidence in the NPA to deliver in such matters should be low now.
It's very low, Brad, and I'll be honest with you. And I'll tell you why. Excuse me, it's frog in my throat. What really, really disappointed me in this case is the findings of the judge ultimately are, it's not as if they presented evidence and ultimately then the judge had to weigh up, countering evidence. In this instance, this is evidence that the NPA, call it evidence, that they had in their own possession. This is their case. So they had to apply a standard to themselves first. And they failed at that stage. And that's where the concern is for me. And for such a high-profile case, usually when you have a high-profile case, you put the spotlight on you and you know that. So you don't want to make mistakes. I mean, similarly to the Zuma matter, you've seen that. And so those are the cases where mistakes are not allowed to happen. So if you've got mistakes like this happening at that level, where you really should have your most experienced prosecutors, I then get really, really concerned and worried about what are the processes internally at the NPA to ensure that there are standards and standards are kept. I mean, these are basic things. Presenting original documents as opposed to copies. We know that we do that all the time in court. So this is a big concern for me, right there, and I will not lie.
Yeah, I know each of you has touched on this in answering some of the earlier questions, but as we head towards concluding our discussion, I need to bring this question back, and I'll start with you, Nonkululeko. knowing what we've known now and listening to you and your insights and your analysis at this stage, what does this case, therefore, this Nulane investment case, the way it has failed, the state, the NPA has failed to prove it's got a case and it was so unprofessionally handled. What does it mean for future cases and trials, especially in the state capture, arising out of the state capture? Andy?
Braden, this case has a direct bearing, amongst others, on the extradition of the Gupta brothers. Now, having it fallen apart, collapsed, what does it mean for the extradition of the Guptas? Are they not going to be brought to the country? Remember some of the charges of the money laundering charges, money going into that account of Island Gate or something like that in Dubai, handled by a friend of the Guptas. When the case collapses or falls apart like it has, what is it saying to all of us in the country who are expecting to hear from the Guptas in terms of their relationship from the money laundering matter in Dubai until up to Nulane investments in the court of law and the decision of the court?
Nonkululeko, your view?
Very similarly, we are looking at the fact that if things are not corrected and if there's no accountability measures being put in place, we do fear that the next case is going to be very much affected by this one, not only in terms of its handling and the group of people who will be representing in terms of expertise, but also just in terms of the amount of investment that is going to be put in these into the next case. Especially in terms of getting for instance, your Gupta brothers back from the UAE. It is mindlessly more technical, more complicated. Is this an issue that can be resolved with the team that we have now? It's a question that we can't answer. So issues of that nature, because it is what worries us, because what we see is the cases are only going to get more complex, more risky, and there's going to be more left to lose on the table. So if nothing changes, justice is going to miss us.
Yeah, besides coming out and taking action, we seem to be taking action against those involved here. I mean, that's Shamila Batoyi. Tyrone, your final word from you. Surely the NPA should use this to go back to the drawing board and look at what resources they would need to deal with other state capture-related cases, because you've said yourself they're going to be more complex.
Yeah, but then, I mean, I'm concerned, and my concern at this point is who's watching the watchers. You know, when I remember a time when the National Director of Public Prosecutions a few years ago, Shamila Batoyi, took over, and we were all excited and thought, well, finally, you know, we're going to have some accountability. There's going to be shake-up, things are going to happen. There's going to be accountability. There'll be competence at the NPA. It's been a number of years now. You know, we cannot keep saying it's going to happen, it's going to happen. We need to get to a point where it's actually happening. And the question is, when we see cases like this coming before court and ending the way that this one has, where's the accountability? Who should we blame? And I think that we should lay the blame at the doorstep of the national director and the executive team. Now, the question is, who holds them accountable? You know, then you got to go to the Justice Ministry. You have to, well, they're not accountable to it, but to Parliament. But then you ask the question, is Parliament sufficiently doing its job to hold them accountable? So we've got a crisis of accountability in this country where things can keep happening and people can keep talking, but ultimately there is no change. And so as society, we have to ask ourselves the question, where does the buck end? With whom does it end? And that's a concern that I have.
Where does the buck stop? And I mean, Shamila Batoyi, the NPA, she's the head. Hopefully we'll hear from her in the near future about this case, because this could prove to be some kind of a litmus test or some kind of a silver lining in this dark moment to say, no, let's wake up and fix things. Let me conclude by asking you, Andy, if there's any other thought you'd like to share with us as we end our panel discussion that we might have missed or not highlighted regarding this case.
Braden, it is important once again that we talk consequences management.
Okay.
End of story.
Okay. Thank you very much. Consequence management, nothing new, nothing extra to add there. But we appreciate your time and insights. Crime expert Andy Mashaile, Tyrone Maseko. He's from T. Maseko Attorneys, and Nonkululeko Mntambo from Defend Our Democracy. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.